It goes on to say Rex Tillerson's cozy relationship with the Kremlin is especially alarming in light of his attitude towards sanctions over Russia's aggressive behavior in Europe. So Nancy Pelosi was out on the day of Tillerson's nomination, basically accusing him of being a Russian agent, or at least being in bed with the Russians, sympathetic to the Russians. Compare that to Nancy Pelosi's statement today when Tillerson was fired. Now, because we know why he was fired, it's because they fundamentally disagreed over Iran. There were problems with the trade negotiations. There were problems potentially in the future with the North Korean negotiation. But this is what Nancy Pelosi said today about the statement about the firing of Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Quote, Secretary Tillerson's firing sets a profoundly disturbing precedent in which standing up for our allies against Russian aggression is grounds for a humiliating dismissal. President Trump's actions show that every official in his administration is at the mercy of his personal whims and his worship of Putin. So she's basically trying to argue that Tillerson was fired because he stood up against Russia, even though we know, as I just explained, he was fired, de facto fired on Friday. He was told about it on Friday. It was announced today, before Tillerson made the comments about Russia.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
We're back. It is the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show on this March 13th edition. Now, of course, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has essentially been fired by Donald Trump. You're fired. Because of his stance on Iran, mainly, but of course the media is turning this into the narrative of constant chaos at the White House. But they're also spinning a conspiracy theory that Tillerson was fired because he stood up against Russia. Again, they're tying literally everything into this Russian derangement syndrome that has taken hold. Daily Caller headline, reporters immediately blame Tillerson firing on Russia comments. There's just one problem. Rex Tillerson is out as Secretary of State, leading many establishment journalists to falsely claim that his recent comments on Russia allegedly poisoning a spy in the United Kingdom are responsible. Now, of course, this whole poisoning scandal in the United Kingdom is still up in the air. There's been no actual full investigation into it. People have pointed out the fact that this ex-Russian spy double agent was retired. He wasn't even active. He was living a quiet life. It would not benefit Russia in any way to take him out. As a petty form of revenge, it would have so much blowback, it would not be worth it. Of course, Russia's denying any involvement. There hasn't been a proper investigation. But the Washington Post reported on Tillerson's departure Tuesday morning. Tillerson commented on Monday that Sergei Skripal, an ex-Russian spy poisoned in the UK last week, appears to be clearly an act of the Kremlin. So Tillerson said that on Monday. And then today, a lot of talking heads on the left came out and said that that was the reason he was fired. An example being David Korn, who said Tillerson says Russia clearly involved in poisoning a former Russian spy in the UK. Trump fires Tillerson, hashtag just saying. This is complete bunk because, as the article points out, Tillerson was actually asked to leave last Friday, according to that same Washington Post article, meaning he was fired before his comment on Russia. But literally every opportunity they get, they will tie it into Russia. It truly is Russian derangement syndrome. And this extends to Nancy Pelosi, who can barely give a speech now without stuttering and stammering, as we played the videos many times on this show. Now, if you go on my Twitter page and scroll down a little bit, I've posted the statements of Nancy Pelosi, both when Tillerson was nominated as Secretary of State and when he was fired today. Now, this is interesting because you will know somewhat of a contradiction here. So this is from the official statement, the press release, when Tillerson was first nominated back in, I think it was December 2016, for Secretary of State. Nancy Pelosi said, quote, "Our nation has always needed a wise and experienced Secretary of State who has the judgment and skill to protect our national security, strengthen our alliances, and advocate for human rights." And you see the tweet there. It's the image on the left below. This is the statement she made when he was nominated. "Choosing an oil executive friendly with Vladimir Putin as Secretary of State sends a disturbing signal. about President-elect Trump's priorities. It goes on to say Rex Tillerson's cozy relationship with the Kremlin is especially alarming in light of his attitude towards sanctions over Russia's aggressive behavior in Europe. So Nancy Pelosi was out on the day of Tillerson's nomination, basically accusing him of being a Russian agent, or at least being in bed with the Russians, sympathetic to the Russians. Compare that to Nancy Pelosi's statement today when Tillerson was fired. Now, because we know why he was fired, it's because they fundamentally disagreed over Iran. There were problems with the trade negotiations. There were problems potentially in the future with the North Korean negotiation. But this is what Nancy Pelosi said today about the statement about the firing of Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Quote, Secretary Tillerson's firing sets a profoundly disturbing precedent in which standing up for our allies against Russian aggression is grounds for a humiliating dismissal. President Trump's actions show that every official in his administration is at the mercy of his personal whims and his worship of Putin. So she's basically trying to argue that Tillerson was fired because he stood up against Russia, even though we know, as I just explained, he was fired, de facto fired on Friday. He was told about it on Friday. It was announced today, before Tillerson made the comments about Russia. So on the one hand, Pelosi, on the day he was nominated, says he's a Russian agent. This is horrible. This just proves the collusion conspiracy once again. On the day he was fired, it proves that Trump is firing people who stand up against Russian aggression, Russian collusion. So again, everything is Russia. Everything is tied into Russian derangement syndrome. Even if those two statements completely contradict each other, she still put out a statement asserting that he was fired because he stood up against Russia. Absolutely clear example of how this whole Russian collusion conspiracy is complete bunkum and is being used as a political witch hunt to undermine the Trump administration once again. We see it with the firing of Rex Tillerson. Now, Hillary Clinton has been making headlines once again, and as I said on Twitter, that's a good thing. Every effort possible should be made to ensure Hillary has a vocal platform right up until 2020, because everything that comes out of her mouth is completely imbecilic, is completely arrogant, and completely strikes at the root of why she lost in the first place. I mean, she's Trump's biggest and best cheerleader for 2020. We need to keep her prominent on that platform because everything that comes out of her mouth helps Trump immeasurably. So we've got this video clip now where she's talking about why she resonated with people on the East and West Coast and how that relates to GDP. Let's go to the Hillary clip right now. Here it is.
There's all that red in the middle where Trump won. I win the coasts, I win, Illinois and Minnesota, places like that. But what the map doesn't show you is that I won the places that represent 2/3 of America's gross domestic product. So I won the places that are optimistic, diverse, dynamic, moving forward. And his whole campaign, Make America Great Again, was looking backwards.
So again, there is Hillary Clinton brazenly admitting to the fact that she only resonated with the bi-coastal elites, that she paid no attention whatsoever to the Rust Belt, to Wisconsin, to Michigan, the very places where she lost the election. See, she can't help let her arrogance, her disdain for flyover country slip out at every available opportunity. And the audience applauds it. She's like, this is why I lost, because I don't resonate with actual hardworking Americans who have been impoverished because of globalism. And she's making that out as if it's a good thing. No, you complete idiot. That's why you lost. That's why Democrats are going to lose again if they don't have an actual economic platform for 2020 that resonates with Americans in those Rust Belt areas, the ones who voted for Trump, the ones who are now getting their jobs back. We saw a steel plant, I think it was in Pennsylvania last week, opening, 500 Americans getting jobs because of that. You don't resonate with those people. That's why you lost the election, because you campaigned online. You failed to even go out there because you were too busy coughing, hacking, collapsing, and sleeping. But the very fact that it still comes out of her mouth and she can barely hide her supreme arrogance, again, just tells you everything you need to know about Hillary Clinton and the machine that surrounds her. There you see again, stumbling down the stairs. Shouldn't really laugh at somebody's disability or their illness, but when the media tells us we're conspiracy theorists for even pointing to reality and saying that obviously she's got complications, problems from prior illnesses that made their way very viscerally, very visually into the 2016 election campaign, and they called us conspiracy theorists, then they went on this whole rag for the past 6 months about how Trump was deranged, about how he was physically unfit, drinking too many Diet Cokes. He has his physical assessment. He has his mental assessment. Absolutely perfect. And yet Stelter and all the rest of them at CNN still insisted he was physically unfit. But we're reckless conspiracy theorists for saying the same about Hillary, even as she's coughing, even as she's falling and fainting. Absolutely incredible. We'll be back on the Alex Jones Show live. Breaking news at Infowars.com.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
It's the claim that the August protest was some sort of left-wing plot. Who, you might ask, would say something so offensive? An elected representative who's serving right now in the U.S. Congress.
And look at the background. George Soros is one of those people that actually helps, back these individuals. Who is he?
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right. Yes.
Was it difficult?
Not at all.
Do you think George Soros funded the neo-Nazis who marched in Charlottesville?
Wouldn't it be interesting to find out?
These conspiracy theories were first spread by radio talk show host Alex Jones.
Is this lost on anyone? George Soros is a famous Nazi collaborator.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
The globalists are losing, but they're doubling down their attacks. There's one thing they fear, and it's people power. Infowars has defeated their censorship so far only because of you spreading the links, spreading the articles, subscribing, clicking the notification buttons, and getting the articles and videos out. But they are intensifying their censorship, so now it's more important than ever to ensure we keep the First Amendment alive and well right here in America and free speech worldwide. So from Australia to countries in Africa, to Europe, to Mexico, to right here in the USA, I salute you all for taking action and defending free speech. We will prevail. Over a year in the making, produced by one of the top organic firms in the country, that if you want proven studies and documentation, I can speak for hours just on the files I have here, of what this is proven to do, the ingredients in this. This is the ultimate immune system boost for this time of year, any time of the year. But Immune Wall is incredible. And folks, other formulas that aren't even as good are $70, $80. It's a great deal at $39. Immune Wall, beta-glucans, olive leaf, and so much more. It is concentrated. You need to go read what is in here. The mushroom blend of the most expensive, highest quality mushrooms that just incredibly accelerate. A citrus peel blend. I mean, this is the next level. It's now available, ladies and gentlemen, Immune Wall. I think it's beyond seasonal. Beta, glucan, olive leaf, and more. Immune Wall, InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLive.com, or 888-253-3139.